Hey there, YouTube! Welcome on back to Artichoke Dip. My name is Rob, solo tabletop gamer, and in this video, I'm going to talk about an idea that came to me and how I put it together. And I want to do a couple more videos after this, playthroughs, to show you how I tweak it, figure out what works, what doesn't, to refine it a little bit better. Also known as creating my own campaign setting. So before I get into this video, if you like this video, click the like button. And if you have not subscribed, click the subscribe button, followed by the bell icon. Every time I upload a new video, you'll get notified so you won't miss it. Alright, moving on. So, campaign module. Some of those of you out there that are new to RPG, that have maybe started out small, maybe with like 4 Against Darkness, or I don't want to really say that basic fantasy is small, but compared to a lot of other RPG systems out there, in the scope of things, it is much simpler to understand in a smaller system comparatively to other companies that, like Palladium Fantasy or Wizards of the Coast with Dungeons and Dragons, that just has a huge catalog of different games. So with that being said, let's talk about the idea that I came up with and how I did it and the sources that I used to put this all together. So I wanted to play something new, something fresh. I'm kind of getting burned out on D&D and Palladium Fantasy a little bit. Not that I'm burned out on the game systems, but medieval fantasy. I wanted to do something a little bit different from medieval fantasy, even though it's my favorite gaming genre. I just wanted something a little bit different. So this idea came to me the other morning, and that was, it would be cool to have a setting that was set post World War II, but in an alternate reality, to where World War II was ended by atomic war on a global level, and radiological fallout has just decimated the planet. Survivors that went to these areas called safe haven bunkers, where there were soldiers and civilians alike, were locked in for 7 years. That's all the supplies that they had to last them. And now they have emerged out of these bunkers and they have to go out into this hostile world to be able to survive and, well, try to establish communications with other survivors out there in the world. But I wanted to do something that had a Call of Cthulhu type of feel into this world as well, particularly with sanity and the old ones, the old dark gods that are really behind the curtains pulling the strings on everything. I wanted to integrate that as well, while maintaining that this is post World War II, after the Earth has experienced a just massive global atomic war that has just, well, decimated everything. Now, you may be thinking to yourself when I say campaign module, because some of you out there, you veterans that have been playing for a while, you know what I'm talking about when I say a campaign module. I'm not talking about writing something like this. Maybe over time, with your notes, you may compile something like this, but I'm talking much simpler. And I'm going to go through the steps of how I did it and what books I used to get all my information, how I compiled it, and how I can use them books very easily as I play to make it quick. So any campaign module consists of a couple of, I'm going to say elements, we'll say, of knowledge. Let's just put it to you that way. A couple elements of knowledge that you have to know about it in order to run it, and run it to keep everything balanced. Now, pre-generated ones like this, or pre-published, these have already been written, they've been play tested, they've been edited, they have been written to be extremely balanced and well marketed to a large audience of people out there. But with solo RPG, that's not what this is about. This is about our gaming experience. This is about us coming up with an idea, bringing that idea to life and into our gaming table, and being able to go through it, play it, and alter it and change it to the way that we want to do that. So, where did I come up with all of this? What are the steps that you take to put all of this together? Very first thing that you have to do, you have to decide on a system, a core mechanic system that you're going to use for your campaign. Now, for me, because I pulled a lot of my Call of Cthulhu ideas and templates right out of this book, this is written for 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons. So it's a no-brainer. I'm using the D20 system of 3rd edition for my characters. And the character classes, which you're going to have to decide which character classes you're going to have in there. You're also going to have to decide, are you going to have, let's say, use an example of Dungeons and Dragons, all the races available out of the main core rulebook, or are you going to limit it to just humans? With my game system, I have limited it to just humans because this is a alternative reality of our world after nuclear fallout. So I use the templates that they gave me because they don't use character classes, they use a thing called professions. Same thing, different name. Basically, you have assigned skills to each profession, which makes it, pretty simple. So when it came to making my character classes, I used this bit of information along with the sanity out of this, because the sanity is the one thing that really stands out to me with the Call of Cthulhu. How your characters can only be subjected to so much, and then they just lose their minds. And then at that point, the curtains are opened and they see the ancient dark evils that are really pulling the strings behind the curtains of everything, we should say. So, very first thing is, I decided my mechanic was 3rd edition. I want the Call of Cthulhu aspects in there, so I used the template and character classes out of this, along with the sanity. Now, it's post-apocalyptic, right? This is after massive amounts of fallout and that you have you. So I went to this game system, Mutant Future. Mutant Future, it's a very interesting game system. I have played a couple small scenarios out of this, and I have to say, this system standalone by itself, it's okay. And I'm not saying that to upset anybody out there, because I'm sure there's people out there that just love this system as is, and that's okay. Me, I like to use aspects of the system and incorporate it this way. And going through here, what I did is I chose encounters out of here of mutated humans to be able to make some low-level encounters, but still make it challenging, to make it a decent game. And I chose the encounters, the appearance and everything, reading the descriptions, that also really helps support some of the Call of Cthulhu, particularly the way that the descriptions of how the encounters will react with my characters, and the appearance, which will go back to the sanity. When they see these things, how are they going to react to that? How are they really going to cope, we should say. So that was the second book that I had used for my encounters to incorporate into my idea. Now, one other one that I did bring into this, that was my character classes that I brought in, my encounters. So with your campaign module, you're going to want to have encounters. Your characters have to have something to fight, right? Whether it be monstrous or humanoid or environmental or whatever, however you see fit to do that, you have to have encounters in your campaign module to make it unique, to make, to keep a story going, right? So I also went through the monster manual of 3rd edition as well, and picked out a couple of encounters in here that would also work well with the Call of Cthulhu as well. Now, some of these that I pulled out of here, of course, reading them, they're set for the Dungeons and Dragons fantasy setting, but the way that I have interpreted them into my game system is that they are mutated humans, is what they are. So it'll work very well, in my opinion, but I'm going to find out because I have not even played one game session yet. I just got done throwing all this together, and I wanted to get this video out and share it with you guys. So, well, with you guys, you know, we're all sitting around the house and we're all doing our social distancing thing and all that. Might give you some time to sit down and come up with some cool campaign settings, or particularly maybe a whole entire new game system just for you. So the last system that I had pulled from was this one right here, D20 Mecha. So I put, you know, obviously tanks. There may be some remnants of tanks that they may obviously encounter as they venture through this world because, well, World War II was ended by this just apocalyptic atomic fallout. But as well, I thought what would be unique because it's alternative. This is an alternative world. What if, before all of this happened, they were further along with atomic energy and other technologies that in our world we just were not there at that time, but in this alternate reality they're a little bit further ahead of us. And the cool thing I liked about this, the D20 Compendium, was it gave you some scenario ideas in here to use. And one of the ones that really captivated my imagination, and it's not high technological, nothing. It's technically advanced for the time, but if you consider it's primitive compared to if you want to think about something like Robotech or Battletech level of technology. And that's these walkers like this. They're pretty much diesel powered hydraulic systems, and they're pretty simplistic, but it takes a certain level of skill to be able to pilot these things. I have incorporated that into my game system as well. So from these books right here, what I did to make my campaign setting and get this thing off the ground very quickly and simple. Very simple. That's the key to this. You want to keep this thing simple. You do not want to overcomplicate it right away, because one of two things is going to wind up happening. A, before you even get a chance to play, you're going to have so much in front of you, it's going to feel like a burden and weigh you down to, well, you just lose interest in it. And you don't want that. You want it very simple so you can get into it, you can play it, decide what you like, what you want to take out, and what it may need to put in. So essentially, your first couple of sessions is going to be your playtesting, if you will. You're going to be playtesting, but you're also going to be figuring out some things that you're going to have to alter to make things run a little bit smoother. But all in all, it's not going to be really, how do we put this, that bad compared to sitting down and writing up something like this. So instead of, you know, going straight to something like this, let's just start out with something like this, a couple of sheets of paper to get us going. So the first thing that I did is I took my encounters, 10 encounters, and I had made a simple list right here with the name, the page number of which book that they are in, and just a brief description how I'm going to use them in my game system. So to give you a good example here, there are the choker. If you're familiar with the choker in the Monster Manual, it's this hideous looking thing. Let me see if I can pull up this picture for you. So it's this hideous looking guy right here. And even though in this game system it is a small aberration, I'm using that in my game system as a mutated human from the radiological fallout. So I write that in there, a mutated human. And the reason why I do this is when I roll for my encounter, if that encounter comes up and it just kind of doesn't fit the scenario, I already know what I'm looking at, and it's going to save me a lot of time from running to that book to get to that page when I can just re-roll and find something else on this list that I know it's going to fit into that scenario better. So your first thing you want to do is your characters. Second thing you want to do is get your encounters. Build yourself a decent encounter list. Keep it simple. Keep it real simple. Just like I explained in my last video when I was using the dungeon tiles and I was explaining how when you get your encounters out of your monster manual, whatever you want, pay attention to your armor class, your hit points, the movement, the damage, and if the encounter has too many abilities and it seems like it's just too overpowered, limit it to one ability for the level at which you're playing at with your campaign. If you're starting out on first level with your characters, or if you decide to start out at a higher level, make sure you keep your encounters pretty balanced. Otherwise, one of two things is going to happen. A, your heroes are going to be, or your characters I should say, are going to be way overpowered, and you're not going to have much of a challenge from your encounters, or your encounters are just going to be grossly overpowered, and you're going to have a total party kill time after time, and you're going to get bored with it pretty quick, particularly if you keep dying. So your character class, your encounters. The third thing you want to think about is the environment of the world, and particularly weather. So with mine, I kept the weather pretty simple and made a little matrix for that on a random table, which is, it's either hot, cold, raining, or there's snow. Now the thing about the rain and the snow is they're radioactive, and I made that to where it has a difficulty class, and if my characters fail the difficulty class to try to protect themselves from it, they're going to lose 2 hit points per round, or 3 hit points per round from radiological snow. So it's one of those things that then when those weather events happen, it's just going to add a little bit more into everything that's going on, and it's going to force my characters at that point to try to look for shelter perhaps in places they normally wouldn't want to go into, but they may have to in order to avoid this other danger. Now, your other thing about your campaign setting, NPCs, and this is always, I think the one thing with solo RPG and a lot of people struggle with is NPCs, and I like to keep the NPCs as simple as possible and try not to put a whole lot of emphasis on them for the fact that they are just that, NPCs. That's all they are. And with the NPCs, and if you're not familiar with that term, NPC, it means non-player character, which means it's going to be in your storyline. This may be the merchant that you're going to go back to buy supplies from, or it could be the rogue you may hire to do some dirty work for you, or some espionage, or whatever else. However you're going to use it in your campaign. For mine, I came up with 7 simple NPCs. Actually 6, I'm sorry. 6 of them. The one is a medic, a mercenary, a merchant, a pilot for heavy equipment, which is going to be for your tanks and the walkers I showed you earlier, because it does take a certain level of skill to be able to pilot those, and a rogue. Now, using the 3rd edition, because that's what I'm using for my mechanic, of course you have skills with 3rd edition. What I did to make it simple, as I made the NPCs, I assigned them 2 skills per NPC. So, for instance, I have a thug here. His 2 skills are, 1, he has a +2 to bluff, and a +2 to hide. And I do that because it's just very simple to roll the die, go, okay, this is who I'm dealing with, and then the stat I keep pretty simple as well. They're humans. They're all humans, so they all start out with an AC of 14. They have 8 hit points. They got a +1 to their initiative. They have 1 attack, and their damages at that point, their damage is done by the weapon that they're using. And the sanity, because they have sanity as well, because some of these NPCs, even though they're NPCs, at that point may become part of your group, and they may somehow play a major part in a scenario. You never know. They also have sanity as well. So I have assigned a roll for them, 4d6, for sanity points. Now, this thing's moving along pretty simple. This isn't really that hard to do. It's keep it as simple as possible. So now, moving on from there, the last thing that I did for my little campaign setting here to get this going was equipment. And when it comes to equipment, I want to keep my equipment, weapons, stuff like that, pretty balanced. I don't want stuff to get too out of hand, because some of the abilities that characters get out of this are going to be way overpowered for some of the encounters even in this. So to keep it pretty well balanced, I have gone in there and made my own weapons list and assigned damage. As a matter of fact, the only weapon I have on here that does the most amount of damage is the machine gun, which does 2d8. Everything else, the damage is below that. And so I did that to keep everything pretty balanced with the encounters. Now, as I play through a couple scenarios, I may find I need more powerful weapons, or I may find that the encounters may have to have more abilities to be able to make an even match. But we'll see how that goes when I get to that point. Now, you may be thinking at this point, well, what about maps? What about locations? What about this? Trust me, if you go through these simple steps, you decide what character classes you want. You decide on your encounters. You go through, handpick your encounters, and decide this is what my characters can expect to encounter in this world right here. And then you come up with the idea of how does the weather and the surrounding just landscape affect my characters, such as like mine, radiological rain, radiological snowfall. By the time you get these ideas together and you start molding them together and getting your resources together, from whether you're using books or PDF files, or you're just creating this, you're just sitting down, writing it down, and assigning your bonuses and penalties. By the time you start compiling this, you're already going to start thinking of scenarios. And it'll come very easy, because once you know these parameters that you put in there, you're going to know how you're going to want, well, to create your world. And it's going to help you later on, because as you go along, you're going to be able to, at that point, create your matrix on your, whether it's a sheet of paper or however you're doing it. As you add and or take away more, the more game sessions you play. Now for me, the first scenario that I am going to play with this game system, and I called it Emergence. And with Emergence, I put it in here with my stack of characters. So, Emergence, explore the outer areas of the safe haven to locate and establish communications with other survivors. Where does the location take place? It's in a wooded area with 6 ruined buildings that have been overgrown by moss and vines. And that's where it's going to start. And I think that's where this video is going to leave off. To where the next video, I'm going to do my first playthrough scenario on this and see how things work out, how they all come together. And I decided what I want to do is record it as I play it so you guys can see as well, and it'll help you develop your own campaign settings and create. And you never know, you may create your own campaign setting world that, well, you may enjoy more than playing just straight up D&D. So we'll have to see. Well, folks, I think this is where I'm going to end the video. If you liked it, click the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Click the bell icon. The next video I upload and I do the playthrough, you'll get notified when that video is up. Alright guys, stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. This is Artichoke Dip, out.